pray. Amen. Thank you, Ed. Next on the program, some of you may remember our former executive director, Gary Erlinger. Some of the staff have been concerned about Gary sort of being checked in and out of work. His official last day is next Wednesday. And as he told me before, this is probably one of his last official functions as executive director, but I think it's very fitting that he be here to do this for us. So Gary's going to perform a ribbon cutting ceremony, and afterwards the ribbon's going to be cut up into small pieces that we're going to sell to you folks for $1,000 a piece as you leave. A few last-minute things that weren't paid for, and we thought we'd pick it up today. So, Gary? Right. On the program for him to speak. So if you want to hear any of those pretty fantastic words of wisdom before he leaves on Wednesday, I suggest you stop and talk to him personally before you leave. A project like this gets started with a vision, which Gary had, but a project like this does not get done without a lot of work and effort on behalf of literally hundreds of volunteers. And if you look in your program, you see their list of contributors, but also beyond that, it's just unbelievable the amount of extra time and effort in both getting the money put together, getting the plans put together, and getting this place built that a lot of people have done. I had the honor some time ago of being at a Distinguished Eagle Award for Bob Swanson. And I think if there's anyone in the Chippewa Valley that epitomizes the outcomes of the scouting program, I think the effort and the life that Bob has had is, well, a lot of us would be pretty happy to live that life. Bob was head of one of the campaign committees. I think they exceeded their goal by some astronomical amount. And we thought it'd be fitting if he just talk a little bit about the finance program and all the effort that went in to gather the money so that something like this could happen. So, Bob?
I was wondering how I got this job, and Mike and Gary are always very flowery about this. You've all recognized that at just about the moment you're going to retire from a job in scouting, something like this is done, and of course then after that you appear to be an awful ingrat to quit at that particular point. But I think I might be also the oldest camper there is, and let's see a show of hands. How many of you were in a scout camp as a scout before 1938? How many of you were alive in 1938 here? Well, there's one or two of us old-timers here. I began my scouting at Camp Fidelity in the Gitche-Gumee Council in Superior, which doesn't exist anymore, either Camp Fidelity or the Gitche-Gumee Council. The city of Duluth took over the whole operation. But as we think of this campaign that brought this to this stage, I was trying to go back a little bit and see when all of this started, because I wasn't involved with it at the very first instant. But it's my understanding that Gary brought this idea to the executive board in 1991. And they voted to proceed with this thing, and so Gary, in his usually efficient way, asked a bunch of people if they would come to the scout office and hear about a new idea. And they called up several of us and asked us if we'd bring some people to this event. And we got there and the idea of this theme camp was explained to us. And it sounded like just absolutely a terrific idea. And we said, we're all in favor of doing this. Of course, by saying that, Gary interpreted we were in favor of being on this committee to raise the money to do this thing. And some of us did say that we would be involved with it. That was in March of 1992 as we were sitting around tables over there in the Scout Service Center. Then in October of 1992, he assembled a bunch of us in the Eau Claire Country Club. We were sitting around there and having a lunch, and Gary explained the idea again, and then he said there are some jobs that need to be done here, and he started around the table to his right and asked someone if they would do some fairly minor, it appeared, job like publicity or something. He went all around. I happened to be sitting about 3/4 of the way around, and he said, would you be willing to be the Menominee-Durand campaign chairman? And everybody had been saying yes up to that point, so of course you couldn't say no. And then there was one last person sitting to the left of him, and that was Marv Market. And he said, well, Marv, it looks like there's only one job left, and that's to be the chairman of the capital campaign. It kind of looks like you're it. And Marv said, yeah, I guess it kind of looks like I'm it. And that's how Marv Market became the chairman of this capital campaign. And when I first heard that story, I thought, well, Gary certainly had talked to Marv ahead of time, and he had this thing all set up, and he had not, both by his admission and Marv Market's. So this is poor advice to give you now because Gary is leaving us, but never sit on the left-hand side of Gary, because if you do, you will be in for a big job. And of course, Marv Market is now the council president as well. So I think he's probably going to, after this, it's going to be arranged that he'll move to Ohio, and somehow he'll become the chairman of the capital campaign for a new Cub camp in Ohio, and then he'll be council president, and who knows where Gary and he will go from that point. Well, then in January of 1993, we had selected the campaign group, and there were a number of us in charge of these subgroups. And then we carried out an exercise in each of the parts of the council where we recruited our own committees. And the idea was to get about 10 sub-chairmen, each of whom would have 5 people working with them. And we asked each person if they would contact 5 to 7 people and ask them to become a part of this campaign. And I had just an excellent committee at that time, and I see a couple of those group chairmen who were here. A couple of them were former scouts from Menominee who had left town and then returned and were very enthusiastic about it. And altogether in Menominee, we had over 160 people who contributed to the funding for this Scout camp. And as you look at your yellow sheet there, you will see that there are between 350 and 400 people that contributed to this. I think that's really an honor to the committee that raised this, but I always said that scouting is one of the easiest things to raise money for, because even if people haven't been scouts, they think highly of the program, and they think that we are doing very good things, and of course they're not misled in all of that. In November 1994, then we closed down the campaign officially, but fundraising went on. And then, of course, about this time last year, started putting roads in here. And here you see this marvelous thing here today. And those of us who were involved with this and those of you who will use this for the years to come, I'm sure are going to be very happy that we have done this. Because truly, as Mike has said, I can't imagine a better Cub Scout camp anyplace, and this is only going to get better. So thanks to all of you who participated in this. I'm sure many of you saw this brochure. The adventure begins. Well, the adventure has begun, and it's underway, and it's going to get only better. Thanks for coming to this dedication.
So, you heard about the guy with the vision who's leaving. And you heard from the man who really helped put together a good part of the financial campaign. And you heard a little bit about Marv Market, who not only was campaign chairman, but being buzzed. it was not only campaign chair, but just people helped build this place. Well, if you have a vision, and you have some money, and you have some people to build it, what the heck do you build? And as you may hear occasionally talking to some of Gary's staff, trying to take his vision and turn it into reality is a sometimes extremely difficult process. Well, we were lucky. We had a gentleman who I think volunteered, hopefully not the same way Mark did, but did a heck of a lot of work and helped put that imagination into reality. A place like this and the whole plan that we have for the rest of the camp couldn't have become real and couldn't have begun without the work of Larry Sommerfeld, the architect. So Larry, you want to come up and say a few words?
Welcome everyone. I hope you can hear me, otherwise I'll have to speak louder into the mic. I'd like to thank the Chippewa Valley chapter of the Boy Scouts of America for giving me the opportunity to be a part of this project. I spent many years up here at Camp Phillips when I was in scouting, both in the summer programs, the winter programs, the Order of the Arrow programs in the fall, where we couldn't speak but had to clear grounds and roads. And sometimes for some of us, not speaking during that day-long process was a bit of an ordeal for us. But I really am thankful for having the opportunity to be a part of this. Approximately 2 years ago, I got the letter announcing the campaign that had been done for this camp, looking for people that were willing to be part of it. Being an architect and being a former scout, I called Marv up and said, I know where you can get an architect. He may not be the greatest, but I think he works pretty cheap. He said, well, it sounds great to me, but you better run it past Gary. So I sent the letter off to Gary, and Gary welcomed me on board to be part of the project. Over the next year, we spent many meetings and times going over ideas for the project and developing a master plan for Cub World. And I guess that was probably the easiest part of any project I've ever been involved with, because the vision that Gary had and the rest of the participants of the board, it was very clear. And when you have a clear vision of what you want, it makes my job a heck of a lot easier. So we developed a master plan, got the approval of everyone as far as what the plan was to encompass. And what you see here is the first of 3 villages, plus there's a future administration building planned down the road. So what you're seeing is just the beginning and not the end. And to carry it a bit further, about a year ago then we developed the plans for this camp, developed the plans, distributed the plans so that people could take a look at it and see if other individuals wanted to be a part of it as far as either services or donations of materials. And then about a year ago, probably closer to 10 months ago, they cleared this spot of ground. We came up and we staked out what you now see today. It was a long process over the last 10 months to develop this camp. There's a lot of unique details that were incorporated into this project to try to bring back the look back in the pioneer days. And so we've tried to make this facility as authentic as possible, and yet keep in mind that we've got current building codes that we need to keep abreast of, that we need to incorporate in the project. We need to look at accessibility for the project. We've tried to incorporate all of that into the project that you see before you today. As I said, I think I probably had the easiest job of anyone here, because all I needed to do was to listen to what other people had in mind and just put the lines on paper and then give it to someone else to build. So it was really up to them to build the project and try to decipher what I put down on paper. One individual who played a great portion of that was the project foreman, Bill Shea. And I guess I'd like to have him. He's over in the corner there, raised his hand. He's probably the best project foreman I've ever had a chance to work with. And what you see today is the result of his work. So Bill, I'd also like to thank you as well, because the teamwork that you had here, the workers that you had. It was just one great team that I've never had a better project team to work with. So I thank you, because you made my job a lot easier as well. So with that, we're in the sunshine. I'm squinting into the sun an awful lot. I know everyone's getting warm. So I'll conclude my bit and just thank everyone for the opportunity to be a part of this fabulous project. And I hope to see you down the road when we complete the other villages and the administrative complex that goes along with it. And again, thank you everyone. Thank you, Gary.
Okay. Especially would like to thank Marv, who isn't here today, for all the work he did. Also, I think I noticed the good-looking Mr. Freitag in the audience. Is that you, Dick? Dick couldn't find any golf courses to build, so he had all these earth movers with nothing to do. And Dick really did help get this thing together and get it going. And besides having, well, you have the best Boy Scout troop in the world, right?
Sure we do.
Right. Really contributed a lot. I'd like you to do a couple of things before we're finished. One is, you got to eat all that food that's over there that those wonderful gentlemen are cooking. Secondly, you don't have to have $1,000, and as you leave today, you can have a piece of the ribbon, which is a memento. Thirdly, if you're not going to be there next Wednesday, I would like us all to give a please standing ovation, warm round of applause for the best executive director I've ever worked with in my life.